Okay, just testing out this audio.
Testing. All right, testing out the audio one more time. All right, testing out the audio one more time. Okay, I'm going to jump into it. So it's been a while since I've done one of these, and I'm just having some fun over the holidays, like putting together a kanji game, a kanji learning game for my daughter. We're currently, as a family, spending a year in Japan, where my daughter was born, and she just turned 9 recently, and we want to give her a chance to kind of like learn the language while we're here. That's part of why we're here, and so I'm doing my best to help out with that, in addition to what she's learning at school. So one of the things we've been doing over the holidays is just kind of trying out a few different strategies for learning Japanese reading and writing, which is quite a lot if you think about, you know, when you're getting started. There's two different alphabets to learn and like just a ton of kanji, like thousands, potentially, that you would need to learn in order to be completely fluent in, at a high school level, and you can't learn all of that at once. And certainly cramming it all into your head is not the most fun way for most folks to learn it. A long time ago, that's sort of how I went about doing it. Was just I found a bunch of different um, kind of books, and I mean, I'm talking 20 years ago at this point. So learning Japanese back then was quite a different beast. I mean, I started out with paper books. I eventually got one of these like little electronic dictionaries that you would carry around with you, but you had to like push into this tiny keyboard. At some point, the Nintendo DS came out, and I had the Japanese English dictionary software for that, and that was quite a revolution because it had a touchscreen and you could write the kanji and look them up. So all that fun stuff. So I had a different sort of ride than someone who's learning Japanese now, in 2026. So, anyways, during the holidays, we've been, just spending, 20 to 30 minutes a day together, learning, using, there's like a little workbook that we have that has all these Sumiko Gurashi characters in it that she's really into. She also uses Duolingo, and then I wanted to make a little flashcard app that shows some of the kanji and helps her track her progress that way. So that's what we're looking at right now, is like this super vibe coded, like only front end for the most part kind of application that we're building. And there's not a lot that I want to do to this app. It's meant to be super simple for just a moment in time for an audience of exactly one person, who is my 9-year-old daughter. So just to give you an idea of like what the game looks like, it's just basic flashcards. So at the top it says Kaya's Kanji Adventure because we're building this for Kaya. And then throughout we can kind of this is actually, if you go to, at least at the moment, if you go to kanji-adventure.onrender.com, I've deployed it there. Depending on when you show up, you may have to wake up the server, but either way you can get on and play it too. So what happens is you just click the card if you don't know it. So like this kanji, maybe you've never seen it before, so you click it and you're like, oh, it means life. And then you can learn some of the basic readings for this. If you know Japanese, you'll know that there's like a whole bunch of ways to read this particular kanji, but we don't want to overload anyone the first time around. So we know, and again, this game is meant for her to sit next to me and actually learn it. So I can supplement this with saying, okay, this is, if you know E, this sound E, this is normally written ikiru if you use the verb for to live. But there's, again, this one's particularly loaded, but for now we'll say, okay, we didn't know this one, so we'll click need practice. Next one. Maybe I've seen this one before. This one here, generally there's 2 readings for it, and it's going to be naka or chu. So this means middle or inside. So you can see here again in Japanese, in hiragana alphabet, it's written as naka or chu. And then we see here middle. So I can click I know this. And we kind of go on from here. This one means moon, so tsuki or gets or guts. There's a few ways to read this one depending on the situation. But for a kid, the first times you see this for moon, it's either going to be tsuki, which just means moon, or it could be getsu, which means, like, for example, getsuyobi, which is the word for Monday. So the word moon, kind of like in English, interestingly enough, you get like a moon day, so getsuyobi for Monday. So we'll say I know this, and then we'll just have a look at one more. This one, simply enough, usually the first kanji everyone learns is ichi, which just means one. And again, of course, there's a bunch of ways to read this, but we just keep it down to a couple of simple sounds for now, so we're not overloading someone. So that's all this is. And again, this isn't meant to blow anyone's mind in terms of the application. It's meant to supplement just some time together with me and my daughter. It's one of those kind of things that before the vibe coding era, you might have had the idea, maybe you wouldn't build it unless you really thought you were going to try to take it and do something with it beyond, you and that one person. But in the vibe coding era, this is fairly straightforward to do. The last little thing I'll just show is that, and the reason that we're having a look at this today is, I bet my server went to sleep. Let's find out. Yep. Okay, nice. So when you're shipping on render and you're using a free instance, you probably, if you're watching this, you know the drill. Okay, so anyways, I've got it loaded on localhost, so we'll have a look here for the moment. Localhost is just kind of all new data in this case, so I'm going to go through and just click a few of these real quick and see where we get. This may not take us very far, but I can push view all and it goes to a progress screen, and then you'll see that it's tracking my progress where I can see which ones I've mastered over time. So which ones theoretically do I know? And it looks like after clicking those, the new ones that I've mastered today were san and miru, which means to look. So I've already mastered these 5. I can see some might get temporarily put into needs practice if I marked it as such, or they might get put into learning now. These statuses are, kind of like always going to have a number of them. And inside of the program itself, on the VS Code side, we even have a constant where we can set what's the max number that we want in the mix of learning now. I put 15, I believe. And so anyways, that's the basic sort of gist of the game, right? Nothing crazy, but that's not really the point. It's really meant, again, to just supplement some stuff that my daughter and I are doing outside of, so it's not just Duolingo, which is primarily something she does on her own, and it's not just a workbook, which, let's face it, sometimes writing in workbooks is boring, so it's nice to have a little game like this. The thing that I want to think about today is this. Currently, if you have a look over in the README here, whoops, we're making the wrong thing big. So let's see. Okay, if you have a look over here in the README, you'll see that we are using, for data persistence, we're using a Dexie wrapper, a wrapper called Dexie around IndexedDB. So if you do web apps, you would know that immediately, oh, okay, so this is all scoped into the user's browser, which is great if they only ever use one device. So I haven't put auth or anything like this because, again, it's just, for a user of one. And generally she uses it on her iPad. So it's set up where she can add the icon to her home screen and then just like launch the application that way. So the trick, of course, is that sometimes, like today, we actually, it's still the New Year's holidays here in Japan. So we went down to Starbucks and we wanted to play the game. But if we didn't have her iPad with us, then how is she going to make any progress? So that's one of the things that we want to think about here is how to start making it possible for her to carry her data with her. And probably what that ends up meaning is we might put some sort of light login around this application. I don't know if we'll go that far, but one thing I do want to just try and have a look at today is just the concept of data portability. And so let's just kind of dive in. What we'll actually have a look at here first is just like how is the Next.js application set up, and then we'll kind of see what we can do to consider, what can we do to just make sure that no matter what happens, that first we don't just destroy her data. So we'll probably do some sort of like import-export situation to get started. Obviously that's not something that she's going to want to use or that the average user would, but it is a good way to sort of like just make sure that her data is safe before we start messing around with anything else. So anyways, inside of the application, so this is just a standard Next.js application. So I typically put everything inside of the source directory. So we have here, we're using Next.js 16, so everything goes into an app directory, and you can see the pages here. So this one's just quite simply importing a kanji flashcard game, and then a lot of stuff happens in here. But this is where the main game happens, and it's pulling in, I don't know, all kinds of different components, and the database stuff. Like can have a look in here and see that, yeah, so this user doesn't have much progress yet because like we're literally doing this one in real time while I'm talking to you, whereas the one on localhost at least had a little bit of progress. So again, I would show you my daughter's data, but it's like on her iPad, and that's the problem we're here to solve. So she's currently somewhere close to, I think pretty close to 40 first grade kanji mastered, and then second grade kanji are next up. So anyways, this page here is all handled inside of this /progress page. So again, there's a lot more going on in this one, just because there's a lot happening. So it eventually returns a progress view that takes in the stats, all the different cards, any of that kind of stuff, and gives us like this nice chart, and then also this little section that we can filter on if we want to, the different kanji statuses. So that's the basic setup. And then what we're going to want to do now is kind of consider what a good strategy would be for just taking what we currently have in the IndexedDB and making a downloadable file that we could then re-import. That way, again, if we start messing around with the database to say, for example, put it in the cloud or do some sort of sync across devices, that at least we know that we have a hard copy of her data somewhere. So that's one, because as the parent in this situation, I certainly don't want to interrupt her progress because that'll be a big bummer. But the other one is, even something like this would be quite nice for application development purposes. We would be able to go into just like for example, a JSON structure, modify some data, and then upload that into the local application on localhost, or even just the one running in my browser. And then in order to demonstrate, oh, this is what it's going to look like when you have 82 kanji mastered, I could just go in and like potentially modify that data, or most likely have a large language model do it for me. So it's kind of two birds with one stone. It'll be a nice dev tool for sure, and it'll also be a good way to just be super careful with the hard work that my daughter's done so far. So that's where we're getting started. And we're going to start by, you can see over here in VS Code, I have it set up to talk to Codex, which is a ChatGPT or OpenAI product. So we're going to work with that and just kind of see what it comes back with. I tend like to just start by asking some questions to the LLM, and so I think that's what we're going to do first. Let me try this live, but I think we can actually just dictate straight to the bot here anyways. So again, just to pre-prepare, so I'm not sitting here modifying a ton of text in real time. The idea is we want to ask the LLM to have a look at our application and suggest strategies for being able to do a database dump into a JSON file and then a database upload into a JSON file. So as a matter of fact, we may just take the upload side out of it so that we can help the LLM really focus in on what we're asking for. So I think that's what we'll do first. So let's give the dictation a try so I don't have to sit here and type a bunch. Have a look around this repo and tell me what you see. One of the things that we're going to want to talk about is giving the user the ability to download a data dump of everything that's in the IndexedDB, and most likely we'll want to put that into a JSON format file, but I'm curious to hear what your take is on that. All right, I won't wordsmith it, let's just go with it and see what happens. So probably at this point, if you're even looking at this, you've played around with large language model tools in coding, and this little tiny app for an audience of one is unabashedly a vibe coded thing that I'm doing just over the holidays. So we can, just to make things easy, if you're using something like Codex or GitHub Copilot, or presumably Claude as well, you just bring that into your local coding environment, whatever that happens to be. I use VS Code just because of muscle memory. I know there's a lot of really good options out there for different ones, but that's what I'm using. And Codex, it will just show up right in VS Code, so I can ask it a question and just kind of have it go look around, which is quite nice. This is the raw sort of Codex chatbot. There's also this one down here that VS Code kind of sticks in and won't let you ever get rid of, as far as I can tell. I keep it closed. I think this used to default into Copilot, which I don't use. But these days it seems to also mirror what's going on in Codex. So that's a thing I've got to look into at some point. But so far, not something I ever use. But this is the fun part about waiting for a bot to sit and do things, is there's a lot of waiting time right now. Especially when you ask it to have a look around a repo. This is still a pretty small repo. Once your project gets pretty big, if you ask it to do that, that's like go get a cup of coffee type situation. While it's waiting, or while it's working, one of the things I want to think about a little bit is where to even put this functionality. Again, this is like a tap, tap, tap sort of game for a kid on an iPad or a phone. So to the extent that we can, I'd rather not sort of initiate a lot of database dumps very easily just by accidentally clicking on something. And so that's something to consider. If I knew we were just doing this game on the desktop, what I might do is come up with some sort of command, like a keyboard command that's like just not easily discoverable. Again, because like doing the dump is not like something that it's not hazardous if they dump all of their data. This is just a little very low stakes kanji game, but it is probably annoying if they keep like, I'm just imagining, for example, like if you had this game loaded on your iPhone and someone kept clicking the download button, I guess what you end up with is it's writing to, in my case, it'd probably be iCloud storage, like the iCloud Files app over and over again. I'm not really sure where that goes on mobile Safari, but getting a bunch of those would be annoying at least, and potentially, depending on how much data you were going to store. In our case, it's very minimal, but if it was a lot, then now you're eating up data for no reason inside of your iCloud storage. So anyways, some sort of hiding the UI for this thing is probably in order. But a keyboard shortcut won't work because you're going to be on mobile sometimes. So I could stick it down towards the bottom here. This is going to be a forever growing list. So eventually, like I'm going to throw out bad ideas for a while and we might just stick with them. But just like we have this sort of gear icon way down here, we might have one of those down here as a potential solution to this. And then, the further it goes, the more you as the data exporter would have to scroll, but you're not running risk of like getting a ton of accidental downloads of that data dump. So anyways, that might be a thing to look at. Let's see here. One thing that I want it to potentially stay away from is this JIT index. Do you see over here how the bot is currently searching for JIT index? That is a topic for another time, but basically I was looking at all of these different ways to get kanji libraries into the application without having to invent that myself, or having to invent it myself, because like this is such a well-trodden path. Like if you go out, actually I have those open already, we can have a look. You can go on to places like GitHub and find different Japanese English dictionaries or just lists of kanji that are commonly used. And they'll be grouped into things like, for example, what are the first grade kanji? What are the second grade kanji? Like that's just like known quantity in the universe at this point. So you can find that stuff online, and a lot of it on GitHub. I was just kind of messing around with this, and if you can see here, I haven't even committed the JIT index yomitan to the repo yet, because I'm not sure that's what I want. I'm a little worried it might be trying to read this massive sort of thing for no reason. But just to show you what's under the hood for a second, so these are tag banks, and then here's a term bank. So this is going to be just like a whole gobble of JSON. But if you look in here, I want to see if we can find okay, so this is the kanji for ichi. We saw this a minute ago when I was giving some kind of demo. So you can pull all of this into your application and then reference it. We're not actually using this one in the application right now, which is why I'm a little bit like, maybe don't look at that. And I think I'm going to ask it to ignore. Let's interrupt you for a second. You can ignore, how do you spell JIT index? We might not end up using it. I might actually have to, I think we gave it a headache. Because it was trying to read in so much data. Normally, if you ask this thing to quit, it's more than happy to do so. But right now it's struggling to even stop. Yeah. Oh yeah. Nice. I managed to probably hang Codex works in real time on a stream. Excellent. So let's see here. There's a way to force restart extensions in VS Code that I've had to do for different reasons before. Let's see if I can figure that out. Restart. Nah, that's ESLint server extension host. Yeah, like Codex has exploded on itself. Alright, let's try killing that and see if it just comes back to its senses. Yeah, okay. So let's see, let's do a couple of things here. Right now, if I remember right, git status. Yeah, so the only thing that we've added to the repo so far is the JIT index. I'm actually going to remove that because that's just copied in from something else. So no danger in removing it. So let's go with, we'll do this. So trash data slash JIT. I think that one will work on directories. Yep, it will. Okay, great. And then, interesting. So it did eventually complete, but I am going to do this again just in case. Let me have a look though. Took a quick pass around the repo. It's a local first Next.js flashcard app with Dexie and turn-based SRS. App router, yeah. So this is it explaining the repo back to me. I tend to find that's pretty good practice if you're trying to like warm up a conversation with the LLM, just because like in general asking it to look around is smart, but your mileage is going to vary depending on how large your application is. This one's tiny, so if we hadn't had that endless amount of data from this JIT index repo, that would have gone a lot faster. So anyway, so this is it explaining the repo back to me. Yeah, and you can even see that it did find there's a big JIT index Yomitan data set not referenced in source yet. Yeah, because that was a thought, a mid-swing thought, but I don't know if we'll actually end up using that anyways. If we do, I'll re-import it and work on it later. For now, the indexed export take. So let's see what it says. You've already got export user data, import user data in persistence TS with, okay, so all of that's documented in a markdown file. JSON export's a good fit here. As you can see, this has been a thought from the beginning, was if we end up putting this into like local storage or IndexedDB in the browser, like at some point we're probably going to need some portability. So we put this in from the start. At least just the bones of it. Let's see here. Consider, so this is an interesting point. Mutations can grow large. Consider full versus progress only export or pruning mutation history while keeping core progress. If you want, I can wire up export button. Yeah, the mutations thing is actually a bit of kind of a hangover from like the first couple of days of messing around with this project. I'm curious if that's going to matter long term anyways. So let's see, export IDB only, so that's progress and mutations, or we can do full restore. Do you want the dump to be? So just to give you an idea, so the turn counter here, this was user feedback from the audience of one in this game. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close the live one so you keep clicking it, and it's not important. So when I first gave this to my daughter to play with about a week ago, if you clicked view all, which sometimes she wants to do just to see how far she's gotten in a given session and then go back to game, this was resetting, so we needed a place to store that, and I just figured let's, React could have handled that just fine, but that wouldn't necessarily survive refreshes. So and that's especially important since we're running that, we're running it on render, and render will lose because we're using like a free tier for this application. Like it'll freeze the server, and then you have to like warm it up again. Anyways, just stashing it into like local storage felt like the right move, and so that's what we did. So anyways, now when you navigate away and come back, you'll see how many cards you've done today. And I think we ended up putting the reset for the day as like 2 a.m. local time. So that's there. Actually, let's see if we can have a look at that real quick, but not in mobile mode. And let's just go to application. Local storage. Yeah, so you can see here there's a bunch of stuff, but all the kanji adventure stuff. So you can see device ID, session count, the current day, baseline day. Yeah, so anyways, there's a bunch of stuff in here that probably I think we'll keep. I don't think we're gonna blow up the universe by asking to import that as well. So let's say, let's do both. Let's just see what happens. And I'll be explicit, IDB and local storage. And then before we do, I'm going to speak the rest of this. I want to put this export button somewhere where it's accessible for anyone, yet not accidentally triggered constantly. One thing I thought about was sticking it at the bottom of the progress page. Again, this isn't something that we're going to be using often, and I just want to prevent, say, like a small child from accidentally coming in and triggering a ton of JSON downloads. Any thoughts on where we might put this? Keep in mind that this needs to work on both desktop and mobile. All right, let's see what it says. I'll be happy with my solution if we end up sticking with that, because again, super basic mini app that we're doing here. But at the same time, it's always good to ask and see if there's some other ideas. So put it behind a deliberate action on the progress page, a few good mobile-friendly patterns, bottom of progress page, inside data and backup accordion, expandable. Okay, so now we're talking about bringing in more components for accordion. Yeah, a small settings icon in the progress page header that opens a modal sheet. Long press. If I had to pick one, accordion at the bottom. Yeah, I think I agree with that, because actually I like the second idea of sticking it inside the sheet, but I just don't want to spend a lot of time here live pulling in a bunch of components and sort of wrangling them. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to ask it not even to pull in an accordion component. For what it's worth, like a lot of this stuff would come for free anyways. We're using where? Fairly certain we're using Shadcn on this one. Oh, we're not. Okay. Fun times. So anyways, for this one, I guess we'd end up inventing one. We're definitely not doing that. So let's just say, I like these, but let's go ahead and go with my original idea. Let's use one of the Lucid React icons for a gear icon and just stash it all the way at the bottom of the progress page, and we'll leave it at that for now. We can always make this better later if that turns into a problem. Cool. So the result of this is going to end up being that we just kind of stash it at the bottom here, and that'll be fine for now. Again, this app is being built for an audience of one, for a moment in time where she's learning the first grade and second grade kanji. So this isn't something, you know. Again, if we're going to ship this to a lot of users, that's not what we would do. One of the things that kind of getting started with an app like this, even in the beginning, you tell yourself like, oh, this is a vibe coded thing, it's just for fun at home. I remember a moment getting started when I was like, well, we should probably have a parent account and a child account tied to that and all this sort of thing. And again, if shipping something like this, you would, but quite honestly, it's not worth it for something where you're making it for one person. So we're not in this case. So anyways, this is going to probably end up trying to pull the trigger on doing the entire export, which should be interesting to see if it just YOLOs straight into that. I have my doubts, but we'll give it a try and see. And my hope is that on the other side of this, we'll actually be able to, once exporting the file, have something that we can like then jump in and modify a little bit, and potentially like then, you know, kind of show progress, maybe add kanji, subtract kanji from the list, you know, add different statuses for different kanji that we didn't necessarily earn, just as a dev tool to see like, you know, it just makes it simpler. So this is the fun of waiting around for this. While we're waiting, we talked a lot about the kanji data that we looked at earlier. The one that we weren't using, which was this, not this one, this one. So this is the one we ended up not using just because it's a lot more, how do I say, it seemed like it was a bit more involved from a data structure standpoint and probably overkill for what we needed in this tiny application. So instead I'm sticking with, I think somewhere in here is where I got this from, this kanji kyoiku.json. And we can go in here and this is like eminently like human readable all the way down. So again, it's basic. There are no sort of like examples of how to read it. And you have to make some programmatic decisions on like the readings and whatnot, but let's kind of go through that. Starting with, once again, the kanji ichi, you can see it tells us how many strokes, what grade level it is, what's the frequency. This I found interesting. So like JLPT old versus new. JLPT is like a test that, what does it stand for? Japanese Language Proficiency Test. So I took this like a million years ago, and I'm pretty sure I took it under the what's known now apparently as the old structure. But they changed the levels at some point, and so yeah, I guess when I took it there were 4 levels, and now there are 5. Anyways, and it counts from like large numbers, like the lowest level, all the way up to level 1. There's probably some other things that have changed about it, but I'm fairly certain like whenever I passed level 1 was like 2007 or something. It was a long time ago. So anyways, I just thought it was interesting this data structure contains that level of information. It also has you know, different meanings. We're only using the first one. Even for the second one, this one radical thing, that's a whole Japanese thing that we're not really here to talk about, so I won't get into it. But then there's all these other readings. So basic sort of for any given kanji, most of the time there's going to be like 2 different readings for it. So like if you're ever learning Japanese, like this is one of the funny things you're signing up for. It's not only 2 different alphabet and thousands of kanji, but it's also all these different readings for a given kanji. So like, you know, for ichi, like for number 1, the number 1, it can be read as ichi or itsu or hito or just all kinds of things. So and then there's all this other stuff here that starts with like WK, and the README here goes on to explain what all of that is, but like that's like so beyond what we need for this tiny game we're making. But I was gonna at least try to find it. No, this might not have been where I pulled the data from. Anyways, this is just another, like you can see that they have their own and kun readings inside. And so it's just a different sort of way of documenting these kanji. But that's the most I know about that part of it. So anyways, let's get back into like the task at hand here. I can see that we already have one file that's angry at us, so that should be fun. Let's bet it's a TypeScript thing. Oh, no, it's not. I'll show you why this is mad in a second. Because this is a good thing, especially if you're coding with LLMs, like to have some just like guardrails in place so that it's not like totally going off and doing insane things. And you know, that's kind of part of the trick now, is babysitting these things a bit, but you can automate your way into a little bit of it. So anyways, what we were just doing was asking the LLM to kind of like, you know, we talked to it over here about devising an idea for how to do the data dump from local storage so we can back up our progress, and then also like where to put that affordance in the UI. So we decided we were going to put it at the bottom of the view all page, and then come all the way down here, and it used this Lucid, what is it? Lucid React, I think is the library. Lucid Icons library, and then we should be able to click this and have it download. Before we do, we'll go ahead and ask it to fix what's going on here. And I think this is worth getting into for just a second, but generally for projects, like what I'll end up doing is putting in an npm run check script that does a bunch of different stuff that you'd want. This is actually pretty light compared to some of the npm run check scripts that I have, but this one will run my linter, it'll run my type checker, and it'll run this thing called nip. Nip is super awesome for finding things that aren't being used in your repo, for example, and that saved me quite a bit, you know, kind of just like in terms of like hunting things down that, like when you're rapidly prototyping, you end up like putting a lot of things in that you may not necessarily want. Certainly if you end up moving dependencies, you don't want those left in your JSON, so your package.json. So anyways, that'll do that. So we're just going to watch this thing run. Usually it's pretty quick, and you can see here that this is exactly what I expected it to be, which is we have an ESLint rule that says you can't use console statements. It's really not a big deal in a project like this, but in certain, like if we were actually making something to deploy to users, I wouldn't want to use console. You know what? In this case, I don't want to adhere to this because we don't have a different logger for this tiny app. So we're gonna instead comment out that rule. Let's see, so I think that's the only place this is referenced in this file. Yeah, so if I hit save, I think this should be good enough to have it pass that check, because we're just not even checking for it anymore. Yeah. Okay, cool. And down here you can see that we have an unused export called get kanji by ID. This is going to happen a lot when you're coding with LLMs, especially at least when I find if I'm doing something alongside OpenAI Codex, that it's it ends up trying to export like a ton of stuff, and having nip in place will really help you keep the LLM honest. Typically what I'll do, and I'll just do this now just to show you, although it's really not a big deal. I'll go ahead and throw this in here. This would be easy for us to go on and fix, but I just want to show you how it's doing it in action. Let's fix this warning. Actually, be careful what you ask for. Sometimes that means it'll go and turn the warning off, which is not what you wanted. So let's say address this warning instead, and then I'll have it go handle that. Maybe we can watch it happen in real time. So it's just going to take export off of here. Oh, okay, great. So in that case, that was actually an unused line of code that we didn't need in the first place. So that's nice. Another great reason to have these kind of checkers in place. So let's just see if we get back a clean bill of health at this point, and we do. Everything's happy. All right, so that was just kind of a little side thing, but I think like having these kind of like little checkers in place is really important, in addition to like if you do write tests or something like that. Again, for this tiny app, we're not, but like something like this is great. I may just do like a whole stream on this at some point, but like I tend to find, for example, that like enforcing things like max lines inside of ESLint is really important for the LLM, so that it's not giving you back, you know, like 15,000 line React components, which is a thing that will happen. When you have, you know, I've had some projects where I'll just have like the agents.md file here, and then I'll remind it to do npm run check. I tend not to do that for a lot of projects just because it runs it too much, and then I'm sitting around waiting even more, and I know to do this. Anyways, total sidebar. I think it's something we get into another time. For now, let's see if this export works. So it downloaded something. Let's see what it downloaded. It's really interesting. Okay, so it's opening on this other screen. I'll bring it over in just a second, but it opened this JSON file in anti-gravity, which I don't really use. So I want to see if I can, I guess anti-gravity took over the default. Okay. Well, at least for now, instead of, okay. So anti-gravity is going to be really angry because I haven't opened it since they released it, and it's trying to update and do all this other stuff. And of course, there's no way to stop that. Anyways, I'm just going to show you really quick, but this is the shape of the JSON structure. Oh man. All right, you go away. I think we will just explicitly open this JSON file in VS Code so that we're not getting yelled at by an application that hasn't seen the light of day in a while. Okay, so what kind of temp file do we have here? Okay, good, there's nothing in here so far. So what we're gonna do is this. Just move that file. Wait, what am I doing? I just drag and drop it. Okay, great. So here we are. This is the backup. And got a bunch of data in here. This is our progress. I just want to see the shape of it real quick. We're not going to like dive into the whole structure of this because it doesn't matter as much for why we're talking. But okay, so this is the local storage, which is kind of like everything that we've been doing so far. Like in a given day, for example. I want to ditch this for a second, and then let's see just some things that we might consider playing around with if we wanted to. Okay. So you can see here that we have the ID for a particular kanji, and you can see that we've succeeded once, we've been incorrect once, there's been one consecutive success, which means like we probably got it right a couple of times and then flagged it as like we got the wrong answer. And so this is all part of the algorithm for helping you learn or helping the user learn the kanji in this game. But the whole thing is like, if we wanted to, and it probably won't build the import today, but once we do build the import, and we have like an import data button down here, then we'd be able to come in and be like, all right, fine. So this one is success count 5 or whatever. You can see here that like, this is a kanji that we mastered, and it says like, it's got a date timestamp for when we did master it. And we mastered it because we had 5 out of 5 tries, and that's like the algorithm. That's when it knows to consider it mastered. So we would probably want to flag like a mastered at down here, and then update success count in our favor if we wanted to like fake that kind of thing. So anyways, you can see here that like ultimately, this is like sort of the database, if you will, of like what someone's someone's progress in the application at the time. So bare minimum, what we want to be able to do is just say like, okay, we're going to download this, and that way, like before we as the developer on the application end up doing anything weird to the user's data, want to be super careful with that and go ahead and export it once, and then that way we have a hard copy of it. So yeah, that's probably the most progress I wanted to make today, was just kind of getting to the export. So from now on, given that all of this data for this kanji game is loaded locally or stored locally in the browser, our challenge is how do we make this one, safe, so across development patches, if we want the user to download their data first, they could do that, but also like eventually we want to just make it portable across devices. There's a potential we might want to do things like move that data into the cloud at some point so that they can just then log into the application and play it on any device. And of course we can, as we just talked about, use this data dump as a dev tool as well, to kind of like modify our own stuff and kind of like cheat the game, if you will, just to see different states. So that's probably some stuff that we'll play with in the future, but again, this is really just kind of a for fun sort of thing. And yeah, so this is like I don't know how you spend your holidays, but this is part of how I spend mine, and it's actually been super cool. Like I said, we're almost up to 40 kanji so far, learning together with my daughter. So well, if you saw any of this or a part of it, I hope it was useful for different reasons, whether it's kind of like developing with LLMs, or thinking about data persistence inside of a simple browser game, or even thinking about like where to get open source libraries for your kanji data if you're building something around Japanese. Like there's a lot of really cool options out there. So thanks for following along with the Mere Mortal Developer today, and let's see if we do some more of these. Bye.